your tinfoil hat, all made and cinched down tight over your ears. So take it away, Dave and Mecky.
Hey, thanks, Nighthawk. It's been such a long time, buddy. Oh, goodness me. I'm Dave, and this is Shiny Side Out, broadcasting on WZZR for Revolution Radio from Australia. Revolution.radio, the website name, is home to fresh, unfiltered ideas and conversations. And you'll find those in the chat room. And the website's also a tremendous place to get your merchandise. All the artwork, or from what I understand, all of the artwork is made by another host of the station. Been here since the beginning. His name is A Mad Painter. I've been on his show. He's been on my show. Don't mind his work. I would say prolific. He's very arty. He's got a great eye. And, you know, I do respect him a lot. Good man. And he's good at heart too, so that gives you even more strength. In my books, this is show number 639. 39, that is, 639. Mecky would say, if he were here, but he's not, he might join us a bit later on, hopefully, fingers crossed. 930 and 600. That's what Mecky would say. Did you know that you can not only hear us on air, but you can get us online or anywhere on your smart device to grab an app to listen anywhere, or listen at home on a Grace tabletop digital radio. It's just like a regular radio, like old school regular radio. It's got a dial and everything, and it'll stream to that. How cool is that, right? You don't have to have one of these new fandangle devices or upgrade your PC. You can just, there you go. You can just listen through that. And I do recommend that you do it. And if you do that, tell them. You know what? For 12 years, we've been hearing these guys on this radio station advertise your product. That'd be great. It'd be really good if you get something from it. Maybe they could send me a radio. And maybe one for Mecky as well. That'd be really nice. A little shout out to all the people in the chat room. I know Maced is there, Flea, Lavender Streams, Blasphemous, Buddha. Hey to everyone there, a big shout out to you guys. And if you've got anything to ask me while I'm on air, just go ahead and do that in the chat. Just message me. So, going to say something here, alright? If you missed Solaris's show with Russ Tanner, I didn't. Woo! It's been rare that I've had enough time to myself to better do it. I went shopping, came home, cooked some lunch, and for me it's 4 p.m. on Sunday, the 9th of June. That's when it is. That's when we are. I know in the US this is 2 a.m. Eastern, but on YouTube it's any time you want it to be in the future or live. I like to paste the link to the YouTube because sometimes we show things that you can't see over radio, so I do that anyway. And then, as every other host knows, when you put anything on YouTube, there's the opportunity for it to be deleted on their behalf, not yours. You didn't ask it. It just decides to do that. And we all love the leader and the AI and the AI at YouTube who decides that a question is a statement for some reason. And would you like to appeal? Yeah. You click the appeal now button, and then it just does the Android from episode 1. Is it 1 or 2? That does not compute. You're under arrest. It just deletes the video, and that's kind of disappointing. But all of our deleted videos are found on Rumble, so you can go there and you can type in the same things that you would find our shows, and subscribe to us if you can on Rumble. You'll find it under Shiny Side Out. I also put our Plato's Cave shows on YouTube as well. Very few of those get removed, and I do have a backup of them all on my machine, and I have them online, and I've got them on hard drives, and blah blah blah. I'm backed up, so happy days moving forward. Now, Russ Tanner was on Cyrus's show, and they were talking about all sorts of things, but the things that I could remember that I could type in as their show was winding up and mine was beginning: fake alien attack, globalism, anti-patriot rules in favour of the New World Order. That was the end theme. My brain can't remember 2 hours. I really can't. I struggle. And post-COVID, I struggle a lot more trying to remember things all of a sudden. It's not brain fog, because brain fog is the immediate requirement of your brain's capacity to undertake a simple task, and you just can't. You're not in the moment. It's like you've stepped back, and a hologram of yourself or a faded ghost of you is attempting a task, and you're just going, what am I doing? How am I not achieving this? Because I used to be able to do it without fail. I wonder. Anyway, so if you don't know who we're talking about when I mentioned Solaris Blue Raven, she's fantastic. She's got video, books. She's got radio hosts on more than one station. Fantastic stuff. So you can catch her shows in the archives, which are free to access. There's a password, but that stops the bots getting in there. And the password's available on the screen. So if you know what you're looking at, you could type those words in. But don't just get her shows. You can catch our shows, her shows, all of the host shows on there. Download them in an MP3 format. They're compressed, but they're good. You can still hear all the words. And there you go. Now, if I had to say anything, I would say if you're on X and you're listening to our show, but you're on the platform of X, let's type in the hashtag of shiny side out with no spaces, and every word has a capital at the beginning. There's only 3 words, 3 capitals. Shiny side out. That's the hashtag. I'm trying to get us back to some of the good numbers we had on TalkStream Live. On TalkStream Live, we were number 1. We even beat Michio Kaku on his show as far as the talk show was concerned on TalkStream Live, and I was very impressed to see that we could beat him. I used to capture all these stats. I don't do that anymore. I'm not really, chasing it like I was initially, but you know what? We had some very good numbers back in the day. Back when I was young. 12 years ago, we had some tremendous numbers, which is amazing. And there was a powerhouse of tremendous hosts on the station. Plus, there were people out there shaking people in the mainstream, like, Alex Jones and David Icke. They're shaking people. They're rattling their cages. And when they would fall out of those cages, they were looking for other mediums that they could listen to besides mainstream media. And so they came to Revolution Radio. A lot would find Revolution Radio, and right at the right time, Nighthawk created this station and put a collection of really good people together. I'm not disputing the current layout, the current team. It's great. There was a lot more focus on conspiratorial things earlier, but everyone has a different take. Everyone has something to talk about. And I know that I'm going to bring something as soon as I finish the intro that'll go for 15 minutes. Who knew? I'm going to say that because I live in Australia, Meki and I do, and I hope he does catch us up a little later. And if not, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Because we live in Australia, we have researched where we live and who were the traditional custodians of the land at the time. Similarly, if you're in Comanche or any other jurisdiction with the custodians of the land, wherever you live, doesn't matter where it is, do find out how they lived, what they ate, what was their day like, and what stories are handed down, because it it may be that you'll have to do the same thing, living off the land. So where I live, it's the Darkinjung, and it's maybe it's a little less in area than the Daruk people where Meki normally is, but we pay our respects to elders past, present and future. Mine was the area that the groups of people transited to get between larger areas, from the north to the south, people visiting. Yeah, they weren't always at war, with each other. Anyway, I'm gonna press straight into this, and I wanted to say something interesting. That this week we saw SpaceX launch again. This is Starship 4, the fourth test of Starship, ST4, I think it's called. ST5 won't be far away, I'm sure. It won't be terribly much to change. But they're, onward and upward. They're very pleased with how that went. Also, so too am I, for all of the elites that are going to get travelled off to Mars to start a new colony, right? So they can survive whatever it is that they're trying to escape from. That's just what I'm going to say. And every time I hear Elon Musk speak about the reason for his, or the motivation for him to do this, he said, well, no one had done it before, and vertical landing, it hasn't been a thing. Reusable spacecraft, really, apart from the shuttle, but that's a space plane. Apart from the shuttle, there wasn't really a rapid, reusable, quick turnaround platform that could do this. And I wanted to give you an example of what that looks like. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that there's been a total of 355 launches of their rockets, 318 total landings, and 218 total reflights of that 355. So that's pretty remarkable about what it is. Some were just ditched, some blew up in testing. That's fine. That's what you need to do to get there. Maybe even 2 years into populating Mars, when we get to that point, if we get to that point, of course, but towards doing that could be, I think I heard Elon Musk talk about this, that children may then be, of 2 years worth of getting people there, rather than expecting people to be born there, children or, younger age people where it's safer would then start to do a commute. I think it's very interesting. So it's probably going to take between 2 and 10 years to be able to stand up a colony sufficient enough to be able to fly something back, not being entirely a one-way trip, unless, of course, there's a catastrophe in which there'd be nothing to come back from, and that's all you've got. Humanity, whatever we're doing here, and living through whatever it is, because you've got to be prepared for whatever could happen. So if the did, then they're going to have whatever they have over there, and there won't be any coming back to get any more. There would be no capacity for us to be able to do that. So that's why I admire someone for at least giving it a go, rather than being in a fetal position under a desk somewhere after a boardroom meeting where you've been told the truth about what is going to happen. Whatever it is, I don't know, because I don't have the golden ticket, right? Nothing's turned up in the mail, and no UPS people have come with a signed envelope where I just tear it off right in front of them and just pull out this golden ticket and go woohoo. Right? No. So I'm one of the surface dwellers that's going to have to battle with all of you in the same way as surface dwellers for whatever resource we can get. But given that I happen to have been lucky enough to be born and live in Australia, this might be the destination for a whole bunch of countries. People left, whoever's still left, if there was to be either a cataclysm, man-made or otherwise. And I look, I'm not a doomsdayer because I don't know whether anything's going to happen. I'm going to just say, let's hope it doesn't. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. There you go. So we didn't see a rapid unscheduled disassembly of any of the current ST4 components. The flaps, those little winglets on the crew capsule, I suppose, yeah. One of those burnt up pretty hard, but because of the material that the flap and its the hinge and the body of the winglet is made of, rather than being even what do they call it, like aluminium, you might call it aluminum, but that was stainless steel, and it was able to withstand the temperatures to the point where it never tore off. The substrate within the winglet was able to survive those enormous heats, even though you did see a lot of problem with it. That'll get rectified. The tiles around it will be improved, no doubt. The booster landed pretty well into a fictitious point at the Earth's surface where the chopsticks and a tower would be. It landed pretty much bang on to where that would be, geographically on the planet. So if they wanted that to, come back and land like the SpaceX Falcon rockets do on the pads, that's pretty good. And I think they're right on the money. And I'm going to say that the STS-5, whenever that happens to be, and I don't think it'll be too far away, will do that chopstick catch. And they'll probably do it at a separate facility or a separate tower with the chopsticks built just for the test catches. You wouldn't want to damage one of the launch platforms, but rather build one that's identical to it that you could sacrifice in the case of, a rapid unscheduled disassembly event. I love that phrase, RUD, rapid unscheduled disassembly. So with all of those launches, the 355 of them, the schedule that those launches had for dispensing equipment into space or taking crew to the ISS for military, for testing purposes, is an ever astounding quantity of flights, given the age and the development that had to get there. I think that what Elon Musk is doing, I'm going to sound like a fanboy, but I'm just kind of quietly proud of someone who's just thrown it all to the wind and gone, I don't care if you say it's impossible, I'm just going to do it. And then it's amazing. It's kind of like the Google car that was able to do things that no one else could do with automatic driving vehicles. And it was able to run a regular passenger vehicle right on the limit of losing grip around a car park with passengers in it. Granted, there was traffic cones on the ground, and it had to negotiate those, but I think it was a pre-programmed route, and those cones were there just to stop people walking into where it's going to go, to be honest. But nevertheless, it worked, and it was very successful, and universities had, with no budget, been working on automatic driving vehicles, and had an annual contest about which university could declare that they were the best, and take the accolades of succeeding in this test, and also that there was an annual robotic, also a competition like an Olympics for robots, where they had to do a whole bunch of tasks. All of those are kind of gone now because we've exceeded them. I know China's making, it's kind of stolen the dog, the Boston Robotics dog. It's kind of stolen that design. I mean, it's evident when you're looking at it. Like, no one had made it before. Boston Dynamics makes it, and then suddenly China has exactly the same thing. But it's lousy in the way that it operates. Yeah, what am I going to say? So we're seeing very much with China what we used to see in Japan was copying. I'm not saying Japan does that now, because they certainly took a whole bunch of things and ran with them and developed technology that when we were still on Nokia candlestick phones, they had TV being broadcast directly, live broadcast through the airwaves, not through the mobile signals, not through 1G, 2G, 2.5G, 3G. They had it being broadcast directly, like a TV. That's something else. And their mobile reception was so much better than everyone else's. So, are we seeing the same thing in China, the rise of China in this? Well, no, they've got like what to me looked like, because I've seen the recent footage from their robotics show. It was from their tech show and in robotics, I suppose, not a consumer one. And they had CG military robots walking around that no one was looking at, which was hilarious. Like, that was CG. They even walked through the cameraman, the filming it. So, yeah, I don't hold much to that. But they had like the Boston Dynamics dog with a gun mounted upside down, and it was meant to be a weapons platform, and it was just walking around. And like, really? Is that what we're doing? So immediately put a gun on it. Let's just see what happens. Imagine you've only got a clip's worth. So you send it out in front of you to shoot at something, and then you've got to run up and then change the clip. That's just so stupid. Like, if there was a hostage situation and it walked around the corner, it's really only got not even 20 degrees of vertical movement on it. So if you were above it, there's no chance it's not going to react and be able to shoot you. I like weapons, and you might know this already because of my history of talking about it in everything, yeah, every time I have an opportunity. But the evolution of weapons, where someone makes something and then someone counters that improvement, and then you counter the defense by adapting your weapons platform for that, whatever they just did, it beats that. And there's this forever leveling or gain, if you will, from one side to the other. So Ukraine didn't use, $70,000 petrol-driven 8-blade drones or $1 million drones. They used a $100 drone and modded it so they could fly it with a weapon on it, a shape charge actually. So that's pretty good. So then Russia has made a turtle tank, and the turtle tank is a tank like a T-72, for instance, with a welded frame on the outside. But of course, if you're familiar with a tank and its turret, the turret can turn 360 degrees normally, and it's only got 20 degrees or so, 30, maybe 30 degrees of being able to tilt upwards with its gun. However, once you make it a turtle tank, it can only turn backwards and forwards, maybe in a 45 degree range, 23 degrees or 22.5 degrees on either direction, left and right. Otherwise, it'll break off the turret, off the turtle shell. So it's limiting ability of the tank itself to be able to withstand a drone attack. But 3 drones will kill it, not 1 drone. So that counter leveling and counter and improvement seesaw that happens in any war, and to be honest, wartime innovation is the most rapid innovation that we have. And that's why I'm really admiring Elon Musk and what he's trying to do. But I still think, like, comment in the chat room if you think I'm right or wrong, or certainly beneath this video if you're watching this video at any time in the future. Do comment, because I'll read all the comments. I do think that he was read a request and accepted the chance to do it, and that is to get people off world. And they go, I don't care how you do it, you're not getting much funding off us, but once you've proven it, we'll definitely buy the use of it. Yeah? Oh, okay. And that's actually the theme of a movie from the 40s, before we had spaceflight, when people smoked pipes in meetings. And in this movie, there's an entrepreneur, wealthy fellow who owns a business and self-made, and the government approaches him and says that very thing. We need you to develop some rockets. And he goes, are you going to pay for it? And they go, nope, you're going to pay for it. And then when it's ready to sell to us, we'll buy it from you. Oh, okay. So that's the exact thing that's happened with Elon Musk. But because, I'm presuming it's the same thing. But this is the thing. Why? What conversation led to it? What conversation led to the seed vault? What conversation led to Australia changing its Australian Defence Force restrictions on who can be part of our Australian military? What conversation led to, let's try and bring back national service, where you do 1 or 2 years in the military before, it's after you leave school, before you go on to either university or, you're finding a job somewhere. What led to that? What led to the UK currently being in wartime ammunition production? What led to that? What led to all the countries around the world trying to get national service back again and looking at the successes? I remember when there was a game called SWAT, SWAT. It's a video game, I don't know, forget when it was, 2000 or something, like 24 years ago, or thereabouts. And the American military got in trouble for sponsoring the development of it. But in particular, they wanted to pay a lot more attention. This is from my memory only. I remember the story being out there. And they wanted the weapons to have the correct recoil, so when you're shooting the weapon, and more accurately, the sound they made. So not the sound they made just from firing the weapon, but from somewhere distant from it, and what the bullets sounded like when they went past you. And sure, SWAT, you're in a team. It's a SWAT team. Your missions were I used to do game reviews for Triple M. What was interesting about this was that the way you worked with your team and the instructions, the way you followed them, was pretty accurate. I don't have personal experience working in the SWAT team, but according to the lawsuit against the government for training kids using a video game that they'd sponsored, was what was being argued. Now, if you're There's a fellow, there's a YouTube channel I like to watch, and there's a guy, I forget his name now, and I really apologise to him. If I remember it, I'll put it in the comments beneath this video in YouTube in the future. I'll look it up. I'm sure I've subscribed to it. But he's bought like hundreds of acres of land somewhere in, I don't know, Nevada or somewhere, I forget. And he has this sloping land with these steps, like large 10-foot steps between steps going down towards the valley floor. And he's set up a gun range there for himself, and he fires weapons from, once in a while. And in one video, he did something really good. He had set up down in one of these steps safely a way of being able to fire a weapon and then record what it sounded like when it went over your head. And whether you could, and the question was whether you could determine the direction that it came from. And he used all different kinds of munitions from all different kinds of guns, and he was trying to guess what the gun was by the sound. And so the subsonic rounds, you could hear them coming. You didn't just hear them after they'd whizzed by you. And that was really interesting. And then the supersonic weapons, which are faster than the speed of sound, which is 330 meters per second, or thereabouts, with some change. So 330. So when they zipped past, and I make a different sound for this, you don't hear the weapon fire like the subsonic ones, even though there's very, very small, not even a tenth of a second. But in the firing and the hearing of it, depending on your distance away, it's got to travel so far, you might call it feet per second, right? So just times it by 3. 330 is 990, right? So feet per second. So whenever the round is faster than that, you don't hear the firing of the shot. What you hear is it seems to explode past you. So if you were downrange of the weapon being fired, and it gets fired, and as it travels in, if you could see it in slow motion, it suddenly appears above you. Only after it's gone past you, then it sounds like the gun has been fired, and you hear the rush, you hear the bullet go. So that's really interesting that you don't hear it coming. And I know it equates to you don't hear the one that kills you. So I thought that was very interesting. So the SWAT game and them getting in trouble for it was something that was missing in the pre-training for basic training. People didn't know what the guns sound like. They couldn't identify the gun shot. They didn't know what kind of weapon it was, or whether they were going to be in trouble by getting hit by a round from a gun. Because if you can identify the kind of round, you know how fast it's going to be, depending on how far away it was. And, so that's really important, right? To military thinking. So I was really impressed when this guy did some of that work. And that is the thing. You can train someone in, say, I don't know, Rust, the game, with all the different weapons. You can hear them. They have pretty accurate sounds, recoil, and distant shots, and the sound either up close or far away. And if it's at you or not, you can tell. That's missing. That has been missing. Now, for Australia's National Service, the thing that was the biggest standout was when they were talking about it recently, in the last month or two, I think, they decided that when they looked around at the kids today, who are they? What do they do? Mostly play video games. Mostly. What do they know when, if they're green, if they're extremely green, and you were doing basic training, what are they good at? What aren't they good at? And they're not good at holding a bunch of weight. Yeah, they're not going to be familiar with, you know, so many pounds weapons and ammunition and wearing a 30-kilo pack or a 60-pound pack. They're not going to be good at much of that. But who is? Who is going to be good at that? And if you do national service, you've just eliminated the need for basic training. If there was a call-up, suddenly the world's gone to a pile of doo-doo and we need military on the ground straight away. What do? Well, we have reservists here. We have a reserve, which is people who attend on the weekends military style activities and military garb. They can be called up for emergency activities, say, you know, flooding events and things. It's determined if it's a natural disaster or not. And they could be utilised by our government and state governments. Divvied out by the federal government because it's federal. ADF. Now, I almost lost myself then. I think I might have. But anyway, so those people who then don't need basic training because they've had national service can go and just get a uniform and a weapon and off they go. So it reduces your 6-week lead time or thereabouts for your basic training. It could be 2 months, 8 weeks, I'm not sure. But that might be way too long. So the reservists can get called up first, straight away. And then what do we do? And what is the state of these people? And when you have a look around at the cross-section of the community in Australia that we live in, at least, there's something distinct about it. We do have a multicultural environment. As a nation, we're quite diverse. And the 18 to 35 active fighting people, whoever they might be, aren't naturally Australians. So we have a lot of migrants, people who have discovered that this country is pretty good and chosen to live here. And they even might have fled a land where they remember fighting. They have conflict. They might be conflict orientated. We've got so many generations away from conflict from Australians, apart from sharing the responsibilities of Afghanistan and Iraq, and before that, Vietnam and Korea. Besides those, really, we've got nothing. I mean, if I had to say it and sound like Grandpa Simpson, the kids today, right? They're not really fighting minded. They don't have a memory within their family anymore. Because World War II vets now, aren't they 90s, 93 or something? And they're dwindling. And they keep talking about every single time they go to Gallipoli for World War One, right? Every time they go, there's no one left from there. And now it's World War II, we're dwindling. And there might be a time in the future where there aren't any of those vets left from those conflicts. Just, natural attrition, all right? There's nothing terrible happening here. So, where can they harvest a team of recruits today? And it's going to be migrant folk, New Zealanders, Pacific Islanders, Italians, Greeks, anyone from around the world, to be honest, who lives here, but they are going to undergo a vetting process that says they must be a permanent resident. They can't just be a visitor. They must not have been in another country's military for 2 years. I think they'd make a determination whether an allied country, current ally, it would probably be suitable, but according to the rules, they're still going to vet them very carefully. And I think that's pretty good. I really do. We're not at a point yet, unless I haven't seen the legislation that went through to change this. But I'm only concerned for a few things. In World War II, because America was fighting the Japanese, and we had German enemies and Japanese enemies. Italians not so much. Beginning of the war maybe, but that kind of dissolved pretty quick. Your enemy, whoever it is, as citizens of your country, well, they can't join your military. And what happened to them in World War II? They built camps and put them in there, stripped them of all of their assets, money, drained their bank accounts, took over their houses and sold them again. So I worry that because specifically Australia is so multicultural, that if we happened to fight any country on the planet, there'd be a huge percentage of people in our country which would be prone then or qualify, given the criteria, to be put in internment camps. So because who can, from the military's point of view, can you trust them? It's a good question. You probably can. If they've set up a business here and they're, dinky die Aussie, that's a term for like a patriotic person who's made their life here and turned their back on their mother country, right? That's possible. I mean, completely possible. Not gonna argue against it. Yeah, it's possible. But does the military think that way? No, everyone's an enemy. So that would be the next step. It had me thinking about, well, where would we put them all, and what would the country be like as a result? Our country, mid-war, having to internal these people. What are you going to do? What happens after the war? I mean, if there's traditionally an end to a war where we all just get back on with our business again and aren't completely annihilated, because, only the winners write the rules. That's the way it is. So, it had me thinking, but I wanted to get on something else. So, it's also war related. Who knew? Did you know that there's been problems between Israel and Lebanon? And at the moment, Israel's plotting a devastating strike on Hezbollah. And they're trying to go to the north now. Hezbollah I'm just reading the news article, and I'll put it on the screen so that people can find it for themselves. It's an article by Charlie Bradley. I won't read the article, it doesn't matter. But it says Israel plotting a devastating strike on Hezbollah as IDF prepares for war to the north. So that's something that's happening in the world. And I keep talking about, when my friends ask me, Dave, when's World War III going to start? And I go, well, all the things at the moment are kind of like a wet sock. I like the term wet sock. One of my friends reintroduced me to the term wet sock recently. I know he listens to the show, so just a big call out to him. Thanks, buddy. This thing that we're not seeing, we're seeing a perpetual war between Russia and Ukraine, which I held Russia to a higher esteem than I do now. They've really let themselves down by not having enough military practice, using antiquated machinery, trying to take land back and moving a border and not giving it. They're not liberating. How did I put it last night? I was talking to a friend of mine. By pushing their way into Ukraine like they did Crimea and just taking it for themselves, restoring a border from however long ago doesn't matter. My question to anyone who wants to argue the point is, well, their special military operation isn't to do where a lot of people who are pro-Russia on this say, well, America attacked Iraq and Afghanistan. I said, well, yeah, but the war finished and they never took the land. It's not, the United States of America and Iran, is it? Or Iraq or Afghanistan. They didn't take the land. It's not theirs. Yeah, they went in and took some, let's call it our version of a special military. And what they've done is, Russia, and I say this directly to someone's face who's arguing pro-Russia, and I go, you're going to give the land back? And they go, no, why would we do that? You're just doing a land grab. I don't care who you are. All right? Imagine if I lived next door to you and I just came in with, and forcefully took your house. Whether or not you survived it, that's your problem. But do I just, now that you're gone, do I just move back to my house and go, hey, the house is for sale now, hope we get a better neighbour? What's going on? How does this work? I thought land grabs were far from, far in the past, in history, we've done. There's no new land grabs. And I talked about this like 12 years ago when we started the show, that I didn't see the need for any more land grabs. We're done. Haven't we got enough weapons to be able to defend ourselves against any kind of possible land grab? What kind of idiot in the world would decide that they want to start doing land grabs now? And if you look back in history, I heard a tremendous example of this, and it was, they're usually only single people, not a country, all merged together as one giant. It's just the idea of a single idiot that decides that they're going to do something like this. I think by calling out the World War II thing is probably the easiest example. Hitler and Germany and Russia decided, let's together go in and take Poland, and then when it all happened, it's like, I don't believe you guys are good, says Russia, and it backs out. I don't agree with any of your policies. What are you doing? You're all mad. So at the moment, I'm seeing the same thing. I see this is just Russia's attempt to change the borders or the boundaries, just push them out a bit because we want some more land. But you know what? They're not going to farm that land anytime soon. Say today, let's pretend today, Ukraine goes, yeah, all right, just have it. Stop fighting us. Not allowed to. This is where the border is now, forever. There's no more. You're not taking any more of our land. And Russia goes, yeah, we got our our highway down to the warm water port. We're good. We're not going to take any more. We promise, right? Okay. So when can they start farming? Well, not in the next decade, because there's so many mines and unexploited ordinances in those farming fields. You would either have to lay, 2 meters of soil over the whole captured area, and so would Ukraine have to do that across everything, because you know what? There's probably 90% of shells that go off and 10% don't on both sides. People are still today finding unexploded ordnances in London, for instance, in England, in the farming fields, in France, across Europe from World War II. They're still finding them occasionally, but they're there. So mines are awful. If you go through Africa, you'll see how appalling that is. And I think it was Princess Diana who was in the forefront of trying to ban mines entirely because of their awful nature to remain well after the war has come and gone, and some poor person just steps on one and boosh, there goes their leg, or both legs. Legs and arm, just an arm, who knows, right? Could kill them. And so, yeah, that's pretty bad. I've seen a news article here that says it's a positive piece about Netanyahu. So it's like the CNN for Biden, and it says Netanyahu says eliminating Hamas is part of the agreed Gaza plan in the war cabinet. Okay, but at what cost? That's all I'm going to say. But look, I've got 4 minutes left, and I wanted to do something really cool. And if you didn't know that water doesn't just have 3 states, this is our sciencey bit. It has more than that. Yes, it's a liquid, a gas, and a solid. Yeah, it does that. It's one of the only solids that expands when it's from a liquid to when it's frozen. It expands, right? Most of them shrink. But it's also got many, many more properties. And they've just found another one. We did a show on this, like 530 something show on water. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, do look at Shiny Side Out and just type water after that in your search in YouTube and you'll find it. There's electrical conductivity that changes in water when you start to heat it up. And it doesn't even have to get to boiling point. It's just, I think there's 2 states or 3 states there. The water itself is made of the hydrogen and oxygen make 2 different shapes in there. So that's how it happens to want to expand, because one's a cube and one is an offset cube or a hexagonal shape, or like a pentagram shape, a pentagon. So one of those shapes inside the other one makes it so it's readily adaptable and can easily have in suspension other minerals. It can, because of those 2 shapes, it can easily grind away the surface of something that it's running over. Otherwise it's just a liquid. You'd think it wouldn't cause any problem whatsoever, but we have erosion because of water. So now they've found that you can do what's called photomolecular effect. You can use a green laser at 45 degrees at the surface of water, and you can cause it to evaporate without heating the water at all. Not even at all. And that's really interesting, because they're thinking that what they might be able to do now is, because when you evaporate water, it cools the water. So you might actually be able to change, like, it's going to require engineering, but you might be able to change the way we use air conditioning. Instead of using the compression and expansion of a gas, you might be able to do that simply by having a little green LED laser on a little pool of water and a fan. You might be able to cool that and evaporate that water down that way. Certainly within a system like we do the gas at the moment, but instead of using Freon or what is it, RF242 or something, correct me if I'm wrong, whatever it is from memory, we might be able to change the way we work. Now this could also work for desalination. It could make that much better than having to force the water through a membrane that catches the salt. I think that's extraordinary that we might be able to do that. Think about that. The seawater flows through a tube and is hit with, these green lasers, and then all of a sudden, just green light, really, green light. But because it's polarized, it has to be polarized, and for it to work more effectively. And anyway, there's a story there. You can see it on screen, no sweat. Right, you can find it by that. This is from MIT. And so there's the music, there's the end of the first hour. Coming up next, I'll be talking about the parasitic system, fiat currency, and fractional reserve lending. This is part 7. And if my fingers are crossed, and yours too, we might see Meki arrive for the second hour. Alright, take care.